You'll have to follow. You don't have what to read. The question is, we're going to discuss today, what exactly is a holiday, a Jewish holiday? What does a holiday mean? In other words, not what we are commemorating, but what are we supposed to do? So Jewish holiday, well, now what? So it says the Talmud. You have it on your papers over here. A discussion, a little bit of a debate. The Tanya was taught in a Braisa. Rabbi Eliezer says, Ein loy la'adam yantif ella oy oichel v'shoysa oy oysha v'shayna. On a holiday, every Jew is supposed to make a choice. You got to make it. You got to make a choice. What are the two choices? The two options? Either you enjoy the day with eating and drinking, or you sit and learn the entire day. Which means, eating and drinking means either you take the day as a physical pleasure for the body, or you sit and learn the whole day, which means a pleasure for the soul. You get to choose. How do you want to observe this day? It's up to you. Personal pleasure or godly pleasure? Rabbi Yeshua says, Chalkehu, we have to divide it. Half of the day should be spent eating and drinking, and half the day should be spent in the study hall. So he says it's an obligation to eat and to drink, but it's also an obligation to spend extra time in the study hall. What's the source for their disagreement? In other words, why does each opinion say what they say? It says the Talmud says, both of them derive their opinions from one verse. There's one verse in the Torah that they both focus on, and they come to different conclusions. What's the verse? The verse says, one verse says, it should be a gathering, an assembly for God your God, referring to holiday. And the other verse says, it should be a gathering, an assembly for yourself. So now you have two times in the Torah it says this word assembly, atzeres. One time it says it should be an assembly for God, and one time it says it should be an assembly for yourself. So now how do we work with these two verses? One rabbi says you get to choose. Torah is giving you options. Either you spend the day with God, or you spend the day on your own pleasure. The other rabbi says, no, the Torah is not giving you options to choose. The Torah is giving you obligations. Both are an obligation. You have to spend some extra time on indulging in physical pleasures, and some extra time indulging on godly pleasure, spiritual pleasure. Split it in half. Okay? Everyone agrees when it comes to the holiday of Shavuot, which is the holiday that's going to be next week. That's why we're talking about this now. Everyone agree that we have to also have your own physical pleasure. Meaning there's a mitzvah to eat and to drink and to rejoice in the day. Why? Because it's the day that the Torah was given. Then he continues to say, on Shabbos, everyone agrees you have to have physical pleasure, because the Torah calls Shabbos a day of pleasure. And on Purim, you have to have physical pleasure with food and drink, because the Torah, again, the Megillah says, it has to be days of feasting and gladness. So what's the takeaway? How do you have to celebrate Shavuot? You have to celebrate Shavuot. Everyone is in agreement. The holiday of Shavuot is unique, different than Passover, and different than Sukkot. Shavuot, everyone is in agreement that you have to have a special meal, festive meal, enjoy food and drink on the holiday of Shavuot. Got it? We're ready for it? Okay. Now, what is the halacha? What's the halacha? So interesting, read from the Code of Jewish Law over here. You don't have it on your paper, but I'll read it from you. The Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch. This is from section 529, chapter 10. Even though there is a commandment from the Torah to eat and to drink on the festivals, one should not spend the entire day eating and drinking. For the verse already says you should have an assembly for God. Now, yes, it's true, there's another verse that says you have an assembly for yourself. The rabbis already explained that this means half for God and half for you, which means you split between spending time in the shul and spending time on eating and drinking. Therefore, this is the proper practice. You ready? This is the practice that the Code of Jewish Law says. In the morning, you wake up early and you go to the synagogue, the house of study, and you pray there the morning davening and the Musaf prayer. You go home, and then you eat morning breakfast, a big breakfast. You go back to the study halls, and you study the prophets, and you study from the Agadic passages. And then you go back home. I'm sorry, then you pray. Sorry. Until after midday, in order to fulfill spending time specifically dedicated to God. Then you pray the afternoon service. Then you go back home. Eat, drink, and be joyous. The rest of the day, I'd like till the night. In order to fulfill the part of the day that's for my own pleasure. So you wake up, eat breakfast. You go to shul early. Now, this is in many communities. This is what they do. And then you sit, you pray, go home, you eat, you go back to the base medrash, you study, and you go back home and you eat. Nowadays that we spend extra time with singing during the prayers, so what do you count the singing during the prayers? Is that part of the spiritual pleasures, we'll call it, or the physical pleasures? Is that part of the day that's dedicated for God, or that's part of the day that's dedicated for me? What do you think?
God.
For God. Why?
Because you're singing to reach.
Could be. But the Code of Jewish Law says, this is considered part of the part for yourself. You're enjoying the music. You're having a nice time with the music, right? You're singing, getting into it. That's physical. But it's like going to a concert. You go to a concert, whether a concert that's for God. Yeah, it could be a very spiritual experience, but it's a physical pleasure that you're taking. So when you come to shul and we're singing during the davening, that's a physical pleasure that we are enjoying, and that's why it's not considered the part that's part for God, that's part for us. Okay. So to summarize, when it comes to other holidays, Passover and Sukkot, there is a disagreement in the Talmud how it should be observed. There's a halacha that we end up observing all the holidays pretty much the same, which is today the halacha follows that we have to have part of the day dedicated extra special for God's services, we'll call it, and part of the day we dedicate for our own personal services, which is primarily expressed through physical pleasure, is expressed through eating, drinking, and rejoicing. Now, here's the question. Before we get to the question, there still is a difference between, when it comes to holiday Shavuot, there's a difference between the holiday Shavuot and other holidays. What's the difference in Shavuot today and the rest of the holidays?
There's no Chol Hamoed.
No. I mean in the way we celebrate Shavuot, not in the length of it. Which means we just explained how the holiday is supposed to be celebrated. The halacha is that every holiday pretty much is celebrated the same way. Extra time in shul, extra time and extra foods. What is the difference between Shavuot and the rest of the holidays? If you open up the Talmud, you'll see that there's a disagreement about Shavuot, about Pesach and Sukkot. But everyone agrees that Shavuot, you have to have food. Why? Who remembers why? Yom Shnit Torah is the day that Torah was given. Because the day Torah was given, so you have to have a food as part of your celebration, which we'll get to later. Why? There's a concept in Jewish law called a tainus cholim. You ever had a bad dream before? Sure.
Yes.
So some people take dreams very seriously. There's not going to be a class on what the Jewish response to a dream, good dream or bad dream should be. For today, we'll just leave it at the Talmud and Tractate Bracha says that dreams are interpreted any way you want. So you can interpret the dream any way you want. So however you want, always make sure to interpret it good, and then it'll end up being good. Figure out a way how to make it good. There's 2 pages in the Talmud going through many, many stories like this. But anyways, if someone has a bad dream, what do? They're distraught. You wake up in the morning and you're totally distraught. You can't come to yourself from this bad dream.
You pray.
So in Allah and Judaism has what to say about everything, of course. So there's a concept in Judaism called a tainis cholim, which means a fast day. You fast in order to get rid of this negative dream. You fast a day. You don't eat, you don't drink in order to purge yourself of this negative dream, this evil vision that you saw. It's not so common today. For whatever reason, it's not common. But back in the day, it was very, very common. Now, on Shabbos and Yom Tov, we have a mitzvah to eat, we just said. So what happens if Friday night you go to bed and you have a terrible, nasty, ugly, evil dream? You wake up in the morning and you can't come to yourself. You want to get rid of this bad dream. And the way to get rid of the bad dream is through fasting. Well, we have a problem. The problem is
Shabbos, you're not allowed to fast unless it's
Shabbos and
Yom
Yom Tov, you can't fast. You have to eat. You have a mitzvah to eat, right? So what do?
Wait for Sunday.
You can't wait. If you can wait for Sunday, great. If you wait for Sunday, that's the best thing. Wait for Sunday, correct. Ideally, you should push it off to Sunday. But someone who says, I can't come to myself. So the law is very interesting. You're allowed to fast. You are allowed to fast. But then you have to make up another fast for the fact that you sinned by not eating on Shabbos. So you have to fast Shabbos, and during the week you have to find another day that you want to fast for the fact that you did something wrong.
You have to fast again.
Yeah, because you did something wrong. You should have eaten on Shabbos.
So you can't eat. Okay, so you like punish for not eating.
Correct. So
Yeah.
it's an interesting law, right?
Yeah.
So we say we give you permission. Why do we give the person permission to fast on Shabbos and Yom Tov? Why do we give the person permission to fast? Because we say that the person can't come to himself anywhere, right? We have a problem. This person has a big problem. The problem is he's not going to be able to enjoy the holiday. The only way you'll be able to enjoy the holiday is if you can purge yourself of this negative energy that you feel like you're carrying on you. So that's the only way to do it. If I eat and drink, I'll feel like it's like you've lost your appetite, so to speak, for food, because it's such a heavy weight that you're carrying. So that's the halacha when it comes to a tainis cholim, and from there it extends itself to also if someone doesn't like food, someone is repulsed by certain food and they don't want to eat, or they're really nauseous. Do you force yourself to eat on Shabbos? If you're feeling nauseous, do you have to force yourself to eat on Shabbos? In other words, if it's not going to be pleasurable for me, it's more pleasurable for me not to eat. So do you have to eat or not? This is an offshoot of the tainis cholim, the rule of the fasting for a bad dream. So now here's the idea. That all applies to the other holidays, but on Shavuot, even if you go to sleep Shavuot and you had a bad dream, and you're really feeling that you're not allowed to eat, you're not allowed to fast, you must eat. Why must you eat on Shavuot?
Because it's a celebrating Torah.
Because the day the Torah was given. Because the day the Torah was given, regardless of the situation, everybody must eat. You must eat and drink on Shavuot because the day the Torah was given. Passover, we'll let you fast if you have to. Sukkot, we'll let you fast maybe if you have to. Shabbos, even maybe we'll get you. But Shavuot, we don't let you do it. Not on Shavuot. You can't have a tainis cholim on Shavuot. So here's the puzzling idea that emerges from this. What are we celebrating on Passover?
Our freedom.
Our freedom from physical slavery, right? The Egyptian physical slavery. What are we celebrating on Sukkot?
Office festival.
The harvest. So that's what's the reason why we sit in the sukkah on Sukkot, the holiday Sukkot. God says to remember that when I protected you with the clouds of glory, I protected the desert. I protected you. That wasn't a spiritual protection; it was a physical protection. God protected us in the desert physically. We had a protective shield around us. What are we celebrating on Shavuos?
The Torah.
The Torah. Is the Torah a physical pleasure or a spiritual guide? It's a spiritual guide. So the holiday of Passover and Sukkot is when we're commemorating physical pleasures or physical emancipation, physical protection. There we say that under certain circumstances, you will be allowed to fast. You don't have to take physical pleasure on the day. It doesn't have to express itself in physical pleasure on the day. But the day that we celebrate Torah, which is a spiritual celebration, over there we say that it must express itself in the physical pleasure. How does that make sense? It would make more sense to be the opposite. To say Passover and Sukkot, which are celebrations of the physical body's benefit and well-being. So you must express the celebration in such a type of fashion as well by eating and drinking, because that's how you physically celebrate. Shavuot, a celebration of the Torah. You don't want to eat and drink, so sit in shul and study all day. That's what we're celebrating anyways, the giving of the Torah, right? So why don't we just, if you feel like food is not your thing today, for whatever the extreme reason is, we'll give you an out. Sit in your shul, or sit in the study hall, or sit in your house and study Torah. That's a celebration of Torah. But we say no, it's the exact opposite. Shavuot, Torah is given, and therefore you must eat. Passover, you were taken out of slavery. We should be eating, but if you can't eat today for whatever reason, okay, you'll fast because you had a bad dream. You could fast. How do we make sense of this? How do we make sense of it? So there's a whole idea of getting into what exactly is the mitzvah or the obligation to have pleasure on Shabbos and Yom Tov. But suffice it to say that in the Tanya, there's a fascinating line. There's a fascinating line in the Tanya that goes like this. Haneshama atzma eina tzricha tikun klal. Eina tzricha tikun. The soul doesn't need any rectification. Your soul doesn't need any rectification. Your soul is perfect. God didn't give us Torah mitzvahs for our soul. Our soul didn't come down to this world because it had some imperfection that needed to be perfected. No, the soul doesn't need to be perfected. The physical world needs to be perfected, not the soul. The body needs to be perfected and elevated and refined. And that's the job that we all have in life. To infuse the physical body with the holiness of doing mitzvahs. That's what the objective over here is. To infuse and reveal God's energy in a place where it's concealed. The soul is not a concealed place. The soul is a revelation of God's presence. So when we say that on Shabbos and Yom Tov, you have to have physical pleasure. You have to eat and drink on Shabbos and Yom Tov. We're not talking about the soul should have pleasure. We're talking about we were given an obligation to have pleasure for our body to have pleasure, not for our soul to have pleasure. The main purpose of this obligation is for the body to have pleasure, to infuse the body with the spirit of Shabbos energy right now, Shabbos pleasure. So naturally, Jews like food. That's just a Jewish thing. Other people also like food. It's not exclusive to the Jewish people that we like food, but Jews have a special a liking for the
Because the laws say we got
for the smorgasbord table, right?
That makes sense.
So therefore, that's the way it's expressed. Most 99% of the people, this is the way you enjoy, take pleasure in life is through good food, having a good meal, tasty, delicious food, and nice and enjoyable beverages. That's the way it works. But when you have to fast because you feel like something is wrong, so you have to fast, so that's no longer a pleasure for the body. That's only now a pleasure for the soul. The soul is going to enjoy. I feel like I sinned. The soul is going to get pleasure now from me purging myself from the sin through fasting. So that's a problem because the whole purpose of giving, of the whole purpose of the obligation was that it should be something that captures the body as well, not something that leaves the body behind. So there's a very interesting idea, which is that as I said before, there's a lot of laws about people that don't want to eat on Shabbos and holidays, or they can't eat for whatever reasons, exemptions, types of things. But it all, in the Talmud, what it talks about is the person had a bad dream. That's the root of all of the other cases that we learn it from this case. Why is this? Why is this such a case? Why is this the case that we learn it from a tainis cholam, a fast for a dream? So here's the idea. In exile, the psalmist says, we say it before the benching on Shabbos and Yom Tov, we say, in Shir Amalis, we say, Hayinu kecholme. Hayinu kecholme means what? Hayinu kecholme. What does Hayinu kecholme means? We were like dreamers. Dreamers. Cholom is a dream. We're like dreamers. In the time of exile, we're like dreamers. Sleeping. We're sleeping. We're in a state of sleep. We dream when we sleep. Some people daydream also, but no one's daydreaming now, right? We're in a state of sleep, which means that we have an imagination. The imagination is working, but the faculties of our intellect are not working, are not in functioning in their proper way. The imagination is there on overdrive, and the faculties of understanding and intellect to discern between the reality and that which is not reality, that is sleeping. How is it possible for a Jew to ever say that he doesn't want to eat on Shabbos, he doesn't want to eat on Yom Tov? It's because he or she is in a state of sleeping. The sleep is a dream. It's a dream that they feel that if they don't eat, they're going to attach themselves to God in a better way. It's an imagination. It's a dream. It's some type of imaginary thing that you could only come up with if you're in a state of sleep. Because reality is that Hashem gave us Torah and mitzvahs to express for our bodies, to capture our body, that we should have physical pleasure from it. And if we're not having physical pleasure from it, it means, and we think that by not having physical pleasure, we're actually engaging with God in a deeper way, that is part of the problem that we're in a state of sleep and dreaming. We have to wake up. We have to be awakened to the reality that God wants you to embrace your body and take it along for the ride. God doesn't want you to leave your body behind in some type of an ascetic fashion. God wants you to soul in body as a vehicle to channel the divine in this world. And that has to express itself through matters and in ways that the body can participate in. And that the body, if it's talking about enjoyment, the body has to enjoy. So yes, we recognize that now we're in a state of exile. And since we're in a state of exile now, we're dreamers. So the Jewish law says, sometimes you say, what could I do? You can't fight them. You can't win all the battles. So if you're a Jew and you're in exile and you think that this is going to improve, I'm not going to tell you. You shouldn't do it. But if you insist, we'll give you an out. We'll let you get out. But that's all for the other days, not for Shavuot. Why not for Shavuot? Because Shavuot is the day that Torah was given. And if we allow a Jew to fast on Shavuot, it's not anymore that we're in a state of sleeping and dreaming, and that's why we came up with this idea. You are missing the whole point of Torah. Today, it's a celebration about Torah. And if it's a celebration about Torah, it has to express itself all the way through to physical pleasure. Otherwise, you're denying the essence of what Torah is all about. You have to be happy and joyous in a tangible, physical way, because that's what Torah is all about. That's why God gave us the Torah. It's not any other day of the year. Today, if you don't, you're denying this essential. In the Haggadah, there's a saying, Kofar v'ikor. He has denied that which is essential. Referring to the wicked son. He has denied that which is essential. In a similar way on Shavuot, if you don't eat, you have denied that which is essential. Namely, that Torah was given to me and to you in order to elevate the body, to elevate the physical world. Not to deny us from the physical world, but to refine and transform and uplift and elevate the physical world, starting with the olam katan, the small world, which is our body. We're all a miniature world, and that's where life begins for us. So this is a fascinating idea when it comes to the holiday of Shavuot. And this idea expressed itself also when God gave us the Torah. You see this as a theme. There's a theme running over here. When a person talks, so there's sound. How powerful is your voice? Some people have stronger and more powerful voices than others. The sound reverberates farther, louder, but everyone's voice is limited, right? At a certain distance, where if you stand at a certain distance, regardless of who it is, you won't hear them speak. Even what do you call a sonic boom, even though it makes a big loud noise, bombs could go off. If you're standing right there, it'll make you deaf, right? But if you are a distance away, you won't hear it. We don't hear anything. We sit here today, and anyone heard bombs exploding today?
Thank God.
No.
Thank God, no. But I'll let you in a little secret. Somewhere in the world, bombs were exploding today. You didn't hear it because the sound was limited. But when God spoke at the giving of the Torah, Mount Sinai, it wasn't only the Jewish people heard, the whole world heard. The sound of God is not limited. There's no limitation on the sound. So it traveled. It radiated, it emanated from the Mount Sinai, and it was heard in every single space of the world.
But wait, okay, so that's a fascinating concept. Did other people know that it was God, what they were listening to? I mean,
Everyone heard it. Yeah, everyone heard. Everyone heard. God's voice doesn't have a limitation to it. What it means, God's voice, we use that word loosely. And the same thing is, not only the ears heard, but we think that in order to hear, you have to have ears, because ears are divinely designed to capture sound. That's how you hear. If you cover your ears, if you close your ears, you won't hear. Could a chair hear? Could a table hear? Could concrete hear? Could a brick hear? No. How do you know they can't hear?
They're not alive.
They exist. How do you know that they can't hear? They don't have an ear. We assume they don't have a capacity to hear. We assume. But for human speech, we're right. They don't have the capacity to capture human speech as far as we are aware, at least in the same way that we do. But when God speaks, when God reveals himself, everything hears. Not only everyone hears, everything hears. It gets absorbed into every part of creation. The mountain, the stone, the tree, the chair, all absorb God's sound, which is why the Torah says there was no echo to the Ten Commandments. What produces an echo?
Bouncing back.
Very good. Resistance. Has to hit something, doesn't get absorbed by it, so it bounces back as a rebounding effect, which that's an echo. When God gave the Ten Commandments, there was no echo. Why? Because God's revelation was absorbed into everything. There was no space in the world that resisted God and then bounced back. There was no such thing. Our sound that we produce can hit something doesn't get absorbed, so it bounces back, but not for God. This is the idea. Torah was all about, it penetrates every single part of creation. So if you don't eat and drink on the holiday, what are you doing? You're denying an essential part of what Torah was all about on the day that Torah was given. It's like you're chopping an essential part of Torah over here, which is that you have to allow Torah to penetrate all the way through to your physical pleasures as well. My physical pleasure should be godly and Torah in alignment with Torah. And that's what it means that you have to eat on Shavuot because the day the Torah was given. So Gary asked the question earlier. His question was, why do we eat cheese cake on Shavuot? Well, it's somewhat related to this. There's actually a book with over 40 reasons given for why we eat dairy on Shavuot. One of the simple reasons is because of what we're talking about over here. And that is, in Jewish law, so we separate between milk and meat. Usually, when we're talking about celebrations and pleasure, according to Jewish law, that's done, it's expressed through meat and wine, namely meat and wine. That's the sign of a festive meal, we'll call it. However, we know that there's a whole nother section to the Jewish diet, which usually gets overlooked, we'll call it, on a regular Shabbos and Yom Tov, which it's okay. But on Shavuos, it's all about the physical pleasure, and therefore we want to incorporate all elements of the diet. We don't want to leave the dairy side of the menu out on this holiday, because if you follow the logic, we should want to incorporate all types of foods that are pleasurable. So therefore, one of the reasons why we eat dairy on Shavuos, which we don't eat on any other holiday, is because we want to grow the menu, to grow the sources of pleasure. What do you like? You like a cheesecake? You like a cheese blintz? You like a cream cheese and lox?
I do.
You're going to have it today. Very good. You like meat? You're going to have that also today. Not together. Be separate, but we're going to celebrate on the Shavuos with both. So some people make the mistake, and they only eat dairy. It's a mistake. The whole point was to add it, not to substitute the meat with dairy. No, it was meant to add. So the way you do it is,
Eat dairy first.
you have to eat dairy first, because after you eat
gotta
meat,
6 hours.
you have to wait 6 hours in order to eat dairy. But after you eat dairy,
You can wait an hour or a half hour.
the most you wait is an hour. Some people wait a half hour, and some people have a custom that they rinse their mouth. It's a much less time, so it's very easy. You can start off the meal with a nice dairy, fill in the blanks, enjoy, take pleasure in the fact, why am I eating today? Why am I eating this meal today? Because I like food. That's right. Well, why specifically today? Because Torah was given today. And there's no other and better and different way to celebrate the fact that God gave us the Torah than through enjoying God's physical world in a Torah-like fashion. And then we move on to having a meat course as well, or a meat meal after an hour, or later on more than that, however hungry or not hungry you are, to be able to participate in this part of the Jewish diet as well. So it goes back to a good question. I told you we'll address it. This is one of the, as I said, there's many, many reasons. This is just one of the reasons why we have this idea over here. And the lesson we have to learn from is not only when it comes to food. We're talking today about food, which is fantastic. But the message of Torah is a message that has to run through our entire life. That Torah was given to elevate every aspect of our life. Even the physical aspects of our life also are waiting to be infused with the Torah perspective. So all those things which generally others may say, and they may argue, and many have argued in the past, and they said that this is not a space where God belongs. This is not an area where you want to mix God's perspective. Judaism comes along and says, no such thing. There's no such thing as a space where God's message doesn't belong. There's no such thing as a certain area. Every space is waiting for God's message to permeate every single area of my life. There's no place that's void of Hashem, not in myself and not in any other part of the world. That's how we celebrate the holiday of Shavuot. So although yes, it's true, it's the day that Torah was given, and usually we think of Torah as a spiritual thing, so it should be celebrated spiritually. It's actually counterintuitively, it's actually the other way around. Because God only gave us his spiritual book, his guide, in order that it should make a difference to our physical, material lives. Not that it should remain in the shul, but it should affect us in a very personal, real, and in our case that we're talking today, pleasurable way. Torah should be pleasurable. You should enjoy it. You have to enjoy the fact that God gave you a Torah. That's expressed through eating. So even if you don't like it, even if you're feeling that you don't want food, on Shavuot you have to eat. You got to eat today. There's no fasting, no religious exemptions. It doesn't exist. Shavuot, everyone's got to eat. Everyone's got to grab a bite because today Torah was given, and I'm going to participate with some food in my mouth in the most physical activity because I'm going to show how I'm happy and I'm celebrating the fact that God gave me the Torah, and that Torah came from all the way up, God's wisdom, God's infinite wisdom, came down to this low world, into my space, into my reality, into my world. And now it's going to affect even the food that enters into my mouth. Anyone have any questions?